Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. I'm your host, John DeLynn. Today, you are joining us for part 2 of our interview with Heidi Bruno. If you have not already watched part 1 of our interview with Heidi Bruno, you'll want to pause this episode, go back and watch part 1, and then join us here for part 2. But for those who did not join us for part 1, in part 1 of our interview with Heidi Bruno, we hear her story of how she was raised as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a faithful, devout Mormon girl who at the age of 16 was groomed by the Elders Quorum President of her ward and was sexually abused by him. You'll hear about how the abuse was hidden, mishandled by church leaders, and it is a really heart-wrenching and heartbreaking story. Yet another example of how the Mormon Church can sometimes create an environment where young girls and boys can be groomed for abuse, and how ultimately the Mormon Church often covers up this abuse, protects the abusers, pressures the victims to stay silent, and this allows a system of abuse to continue. So please join us for part 1 of our interview with Heidi if you haven't already seen it. And now what you're about to see is part 2 of our interview with Heidi, where she talks about, as a Mormon woman and as a Mormon mom, she has several children. One of her children, named Holly, contracts cancer around the age of 8. And it talks about the promises she was made about Holly being healed, about Holly not being healed, and about what it's like to have a child die as a Mormon mom. And then what that does not only to her faith journey, but also to her reconciliation with her own past of being abused by the Elders Quorum President and by having that abuse be so terribly mishandled in her Mormon ward. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you enjoy this episode. This is sobering, painful, heart-wrenching stuff, but it's also hopeful and informative and super powerful. So thanks for joining us. And here's part 2 of Heidi Bruno's Mormon story. So how did your faith and other things progress?
I would say for those in my 30s, that was kind of where I, just very, very active in the church, had a lot of big callings, and then just always had that questioning wrestle with that. And when I was serving as a primary president, my 8-year-old daughter, who had just been baptized a few months before, and that baptism especially just felt so special and beautiful, and was this, I think there's a reason that we love that ordinance. I think it's a time for people to gather and celebrate these children who we feel like are making these good choices. And I just remember that being a really beautiful, beautiful day. And those were the things that helped me look past all the questions that I had, were just these beautiful moments that I had with my children in the church. So when she was 8, she started to have pain in her. She would say, it hurts right here. And so I was like, okay, maybe I have a toothache. And so I took her to the dentist to see, and she's like, no, it looks like she has a sinus infection, but there's no tooth problem. And then we're like, okay, I guess the sinus infection will clear up. And then a week later, she's still in pain. I take her to another doctor, like, oh yeah, she for sure has an ear infection. And so I'm like, all right, they give us antibiotics. And another week goes by, she's even more pain. We took her to the doctor again, and we're told again, it's just a really bad ear infection. Just wait it out. Here's some more antibiotics. And went through that process for about 3 weeks of her just progressively getting just more in pain. And then eventually she had facial paralysis, and we were still told that she just had a really severe ear infection, and that would happen with an ear infection. And then we're prescribed medicine that made it so she could finally have relief from the pain that she was feeling from this ear infection. And then it still didn't go away. And so finally a doctor had us go get some imaging done. And when that I remember the look that technician gave me was just like, I didn't know what to make of it at that time, but it was definitely like, the doctor's going to take good care of you. And just like having a moment where I was like, what's going on? Like, what's about to happen in my life? And after a couple more scans, she was diagnosed with cancer. Of cancer.
Of what though?
Oh, she had, it's called rhabdomyosarcoma. It's a really rare form of childhood cancer. And it was in her like sinus cavity. So probably that sinus infection that was seen on that imaging was probably from that, was the tumor.
Okay.
And so we, our whole world shifted drastically from that moment on. And my whole purpose was to care for her and to help her navigate the 10 months of treatment that were prescribed at that time, of weekly chemos and radiations. And but she like set the path that we would take with this journey just days into her diagnosis. I just found out my daughter has cancer. She's going to miss her whole, she was about to go into third grade. She's going to miss her whole third grade year. She can't do her sports and her dance, like all the things. And I don't know if I can even take care of my other kids anymore. Like everything has totally shifted. And she had some friends and family come, and they wrote like a bunch of love notes. I love you, Holly, on the whiteboard in her hospital room. And on the same board, it had like her long list of things that she still had to get a port placed in her. She had to get a lumbar puncture. She had to get, her first biopsy was inconclusive. They had to do that again. So I was looking at that board and looking at that list and feeling super overwhelmed. And then I noticed like at the bottom of the board, she had at some point when I wasn't in the room, because I didn't see her do it, and I was with her almost all the time, but every once in a while I'd go out in the hall and talk to doctors so she didn't have to listen in on the conversation. And at some point she had gone over to the board and wrote "Love is everywhere" on it. And when I looked at that list of things she had to do and then saw her words, I just felt this immense gratitude for the power, the healing power of love. And that's what she was feeling in that moment. She was feeling all the love that was being shown her. And so we navigated those years of treatment with her with full love. Like that was our whole focus. It was like we shared that story online and lots of people heard about it. And so like her friends would write "Love is everywhere" on everything. And eventually they tied ribbons onto her elementary school onto the fence, and that spelled out "Love is everywhere." And it's since been replaced by a permanent thing in the fence.
Where is this?
In Portland. Mm-hmm. Yeah, where we live. So at the neighborhood elementary school. And so we navigated it through just pure love for her, and allowed, we allowed our community to lift us up and brought them into the whole thing. And in that, I lived in my Mormon bubble, but this exploded that and helped me tap into the world and the beauty and the community that exists outside of the Mormon Church. And watching how our community surrounded and loved us was amazing and beautiful. I was later on a podcast where I was able to, it's called Beautiful Anonymous, and you just call in randomly and talk to the host. And so I just happened to get through to the host, and I was able to share my story. And usually it stays anonymous, but my call, people found out who we were, and people from all over the world were sending messages. Love is everywhere. And just like, thousands of people have been touched and inspired by the power of that message that came from this really innocent, she didn't have an agenda. She wasn't trying to create a hashtag or anything, but that's what she felt. And that sustained her through those difficult years of treatment that she went through. Mm-hmm. And also I clung to the parts of the church that were meaningful and beautiful to me. So Joseph Smith didn't matter at that time, like all of those little things, it didn't matter because I was so focused on her and loving her and teaching her my beliefs about an afterlife, and you're going to be okay. And Grandma Artie's there. That's my mom's name, is Artie. And this wasn't, I got ahead of myself, but this was near the end of her life when we knew she was going to die. But even before that, like just holding fast to that my belief in an afterlife and how we were going to be okay no matter what happened. And I also used my experience with my mom to navigate this experience, because I had believed so strongly that prayer would fix everything, that the right blessing, the right prayer would heal my mom. And so I navigated my experience with Holly so much different, where I wasn't dependent on God to fix her, because I knew that's not how it worked. And I feel actually really lucky that I didn't spend time in that, like, God needs to heal her, because that would have been, I can't imagine if that's where I had been. I already feel so much anger about it, but if I thought God was somehow responsible for it, so I never let that play into my experience with her. I just, like, we have faulty bodies and things happen. And so that whole line of speaking that happens in the church, that God controls things or God will heal certain people and not others, I had to completely let all of that go and felt, it was painful to hear those stories. That part of the gospel didn't work anymore for me. It didn't heal my mom. It didn't heal. And here's this little innocent girl who is sick. And so for me, I used my faith to see the good that was happening, to see that love. And that, for me, that was God in the love I was feeling from other people. That was how God took care of us during that time. That's how I created that. That's how I was able to still stay connected to God, even though this awful thing was happening in my life. And
I just can't imagine talking to an 8-year-old about their pending death and what that conversation would be like.
Yeah, it's an impossible conversation. And at that time, I felt really grateful for my belief in an afterlife and how that I could tell her, like, she was so young and innocent and trusting. And so I was able to say, like, you're going to be okay. And time in heaven feels really short. And I know everyone handles these situations. I have since been pretty involved with other families who have had children with cancer, and everyone navigates it different. Some will never, ever talk about it. For us, I just needed to be honest with her. When her cancer came back, the survival rate of a recurrence of her type of cancer in that location, because they weren't able to operate on it. They could just do radiation, which was a horrific experience. But when it came back, we did try an experimental treatment for about 6 months, and it was awful and incredibly difficult for her. She was very sick. And so we constantly struggled with that. Like, do we keep her on this treatment that has maybe even a 1% chance of working? Or do we just let life take its course, which is impossible. That's only, it's an impossible thing for a parent to have to do. Mm-hmm. So we involved her too in it. Once the cancer started to grow while she was on treatment, on this experimental treatment, we were just like, it's not going to work, Holly. What do you want to do? And if we stop, you will die. And so we included her in those conversations and tried to be as respectful as we could of her life and how she lived it. So for us, selfishly, like, of course, I wanted to keep her there every minute we could, but at what cost? It was definitely a constant battle of quantity versus quality of life. And so ultimately, we did decide just to stop all treatments and let things take its course. And because of that, she healed beautifully from, I mean, she was very sick on treatments, but then she was healthy and happy. And we were backpacking and she loved jumping. She was such a lively child. She loved, we had these places we'd go backpacking in Oregon. It's just stunning. And we would jump off these rocks into these pools of water, over these waterfalls. And she lived life passionately. She started her 5th grade year. She was on her soccer team. She was in dance class. So she lived beautifully and also with a lot of faith. I mean, we sang songs about how our family would be forever together and how this is God's plan and he loves you. So we used our faith to help us get through the impossible. It was the story at that time that we needed to navigate that situation. And I believe so differently now, but I think in the same situation, I would probably tell whatever, it's like, talk about the Santa Claus, whatever brings a child joy. So if, like, I think I would just add, what do you think is going to happen when you die? And what do you think heaven would be like? And why not, create whatever would make a child feel safe and secure and a parent feel like I get to be with this child again. So it was crucial for me to have that at the time.
So having been through it, the Mormon theology or doctrine of the eternal family, you even look back and think it was an important solace for you and your daughter.
Yeah, I relied on it heavily during that time and relied on it shifted where I was at with the gospel, where all that matters is these bare essentials and this none of the church doctrine that I was struggling with mattered during those years at all. It was all about just loving this child and loving my other kids and trying to survive through that. And I was also released from those big callings I'd always had, so that I could focus. My focus was able to completely shift in life. And I realized the things that matter most, for sure. Yeah, we knew someone that worked for the church film department, or maybe the church missionary department. I can't remember, but he knew us and had been very involved and supportive. And he wanted to do a church video about our story because we had, I'd shared my faith in God and how God had helped us through this. And so just weeks before Holly died, a production team from the church came out to film a video where we shared our, how, the intention of it was to share how our faith had helped us, but it coincided, what at that time really felt quite miraculously with a service project that a friend made happen. They just happened to be on the same day. I'd asked this friend, we had people always reaching out to us, especially near the end of Holly's life. How can we help you? How can we support you? And most of the time, there's not much anyone could do, but there was some yard work that we just could not get to. I'm like, if you want to come rake the leaves or just do a little bit. And he took that and did a complete makeover of our yard. It was the most beautiful. There were 50 people out there. They were laying new sod. They were putting shingles on our play structure. They were getting, more bark chips. They planted flowers all over the yard. They made little signs that said, "Love is everywhere." It was absolutely beautiful. And the church happened to be there on that day. And then the whole thing became about this service project that was happening and just how beautiful and powerful love and community are. And the hashtag for that video at the time was "This is church." And that felt so true to me. This is actual church, when people gather together to lift someone else up when they're suffering and when they're hurting. And so so it was a beautiful experience that was able to be filmed and is still used in the church's websites on just to show community. And then also part of that video that was taken was to just talking about grief and how just that experience.
Was it depicted in the video that it was ward members?
No, it really wasn't.
Community?
It was definitely, and from the, it was more community members than ward members. I mean, the person that did it was someone that we met through church, but mostly it was just like someone texted someone who texted someone else, and then just our community showed up and served us in this beautiful way, and it was captured on film.
So heartwarming.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I think the world has so much pain and hate in it. And I feel really lucky to have tapped into so much of the good in the world. There is so much beauty in this world. And I was able to witness and experience and feel the power of that and how much goodness there is.
I think it's so fascinating where the beautiful and the brutal exist together. That actually you have this side of reality that you're living something absolutely brutal to experience, and then also it's met with this. It sounds like you had a hand in sort of creating it, partly because Holly kind of brought it forward.
Right. She showed us
in
the way.
that moment, but this unforeseen beauty at the same time.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And that's what I at that time, I attributed all of that beauty and goodness to God. Like that was a testament to me of God, is that because I chose to see God in all of the good that was happening and not so much the pain of it. And so just that experience of that pain and joy that we constantly were in for years, we walked that, the good and the bad, but kept our focus on love and love for each other and love. And we had a cool, there was one conference where Bonnie Oscarson had talked about, she was probably the General Relief Society president at the time, but she talked about service and how the joy that service can bring to our lives. And obviously I had enough going on, but it was at a time where I was like, we have to look outside of ourselves. And so there was we knew of a couple other families who had recently been diagnosed, and listening to her talk inspired me to just make a little basket, like a movie basket where we put things you could watch at a movie. And it was something simple, but for Holly and I to do that instead of just feeling sorry for ourselves was actually really beautiful to go and it lifted us up. I mean, it does, when we help other people, it feels good. And that was, and then I reached out to Bonnie Oscarson afterwards and just shared my experience. And she reached out to us after, and that felt really special too, to have that connection. And the church definitely, the part of the church I focused on during those years definitely helped.
She was like Relief Society president.
I think she was
General Relief Society presidency.
Yeah.
So a high level leading.
Yeah. And so the fact that she would reply to me, and, we felt very cared for, and it was, my ward was helpful during that time, but it really was like the meals that came into our house, that was all done by people outside of the ward. They were the ones that organized it and showed up to help in that way. So where I felt like I spent so much of my life feeling like the church had a monopoly on that, it helped me see, oh no, there is so much goodness outside of the church that I have been closed off to because I lived in this Mormon bubble, or my interactions with people outside of the church have always been with the intention of bringing them to church. Like I could never fully be with people because it always felt like they had to become like me. That was because of that need to be a missionary. And so to let all of that go and just witness the beauty of the world was amazing.
I love that.
And then Mindy Gledhill got involved.
Yes.
Our own Mindy Gledhill. She's a musician who we've had on Mormon Stories.
Yes. So Holly had been asked by a couple, by an organization based out of Portland that does a lot for kids with cancer. And one of the things they do is they provide music in the hospitals, which was crucial for us because Holly loved music. And so they would come in and make music with us. And as a fundraiser, they had famous musicians singing songs from their beds, and then they would have kids with cancer singing songs from their hospital beds. So Holly got involved in that, and she sang the first year she had cancer. She sang the fight song, and there's a beautiful video of her singing. You can just look up Holly fight song and watch the most tender video of her. She's sitting in the hospital bed. Her face is burned from her radiation treatments, and so she sings that song. That was the first year. And then the second year we sang as a family, Get Back Up Again, because that was when she was in remission. And we were like, she was feeling so good and was doing well. And she got back up again. And then the next year they asked for her to sing another song. And in the past, I'd been like, what song do you want to do this? What song would you want to sing? And she didn't really know. And so I was listening to a bunch of different music, trying to find something that would fit the occasion, and came across Mindy Gledhill's. It's called "This Is Your Song," and it's actually about. And this is when we knew Holly was going to die, and we talked about it all the time. We didn't shy away from that conversation with her. Instead, we savored life with her, and we appreciated every moment that we had with her. And the song talks to that about. How, like, this is the time we have together. And when I'm not here anymore, think of me and think of this song. And so I reached out to Mindy because I couldn't find like the chords or something. Like, we had to figure out how to do the things, and there wasn't anything online. And so I reached out to her, and she was so quick to reply and give us like the chords. And then I also asked her if we could modify the words and add "Love Is Everywhere" into the lyrics. And so it says, we changed the word. So it says, "Love is everywhere, you will see." And that's been, I've since written a book with that title because that experience showed us how to look for love and see love, and that it's everywhere when you're open to it and you show it as well. So, that is. And so she recorded that song. She had a little tent set up in her room that someone had come and done for us, so that she had like a magical place to be during those last few months. And I
wondered, it does look magical.
Yes, it's so magical. And so she spent a lot of time in that. She spent months. That's where she would sleep because it was just so fun. And so she had this tent that was kind of like her sanctuary that we spent. We spent a lot of time just at home being together. And so she recorded the song with her sisters in that tent. And we have that video that is there for me to always remember her by. So is this a good time to?
Yeah. Okay. So we have the video here, and this is Holly singing with her other two sisters.
With her she has two older sisters, Emily and Abby.
And this is how long before she passed away?
This would have been in probably November, and she died in March. And we knew in June or July that she lived for about 10 months after we stopped treatments. And so it would have been midway through that.
Like 4 or 5
she's
months.
Got a little bit of hair because we had stopped treatments, and her hair had grown back a little bit. And she was pretty healthy in this at this point. Yeah.
But she's aware that her time is limited.
Yep. We all are.
And she's singing the song. It's about 4 or 5 months before she passes away.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and now play this song, and it's called
"This Is My Song."
And it's arranged by you?
Not really. It's pretty much just Mindy Gledhill's.
Okay.
The girls created their own, they figured out, they were so cute to learn how to play the ukulele to it, and they figured out some harmonies.
So their arrangement.
Yes, all of us worked together to do it. And it's funny, we have video of, I'm not going to paint like a perfect picture because these are siblings. We have plenty of videos where we would try and record it, and then she'd be like, "Now get out of my room. She was a really feisty little girl, but this moment, we were able to capture them enjoying that and singing that together.
All right, let's go ahead and play it.
Hi, my name is Holly. These are my sisters, Abby and Emily, and this is Bedstock. This is my song to carry on when you have found yourself alone and I am gone. So I will wait, anticipate every last minute that we have to celebrate. This is my song to remember me by when the moon goes down in the sky and you wonder why goodbyes are found. Love is everywhere you will see. Think of this too, la la la, la la la. When forget me not to, la la la, la la la. Pick one for me and make a wish that I will be back soon. This is my song to remember me. I ran the moon goes down in the sky, and you wonder why goodbyes are bound to be. Love is everywhere you can see. La la la, la 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 la. In the sky, and you wonder why goodbyes are bound to be. Love is everywhere you will see. La la la, la la la. You will see. La la la, la la la, la la. You will see.
Thoughts or feelings?
Just
so beautiful.
so beautiful. I just love her.
Yeah, so special.
Yeah, she's a sweet one. I feel very grateful that I got to spend part of my life with her and feel grateful that I can share her with your audience as well, and that more people will know her. And she was pretty amazing. We had actually a year after she died, we reached out to Mindy to see if she would be willing to do a fundraiser, a benefit concert for this organization that did bedstock. And so Mindy came to Portland, and we got a pretty good audience there to watch her, the little concert that she put. It was a pretty intimate concert that she put on for us. And she sang that same song and changed the words to the same way Holly had sung them, which was just a really beautiful moment for us. And then me and Abby and Emily have since gotten tattoos of forget-me-nots in memory of Holly.
Too,
Do you
right?
want to show?
Yeah, I have.
wanna
Yeah,
show
I
it?
don't know.
Show the camera.
We
I
love
showed
that.
up. I don't know where it
Maybe
is.
like this.
There we go.
There you are.
It's on your.
So it's kind of twisted. It's hard to show it that way.
Because
But
the lyrics mention forget me nots, right?
Yes, yes. And to think of her when you find a forget me. So obviously anytime I see a forget me not in the wild or anywhere, I think of Holly always, but
Yeah.
I love those moments and she went to a cancer camp where she was, her name was, there's in Portland and in many ways, the childhood cancer community is actually a very beautiful community. And there are so many resources that I didn't know existed. This world is full of beautiful people doing beautiful things. And one of those is this cancer camp for kids and their siblings that even though it's so hard, I dropped her off shortly after she finished her first 10 months of treatment. And she had this beautiful experience at that. And her name was Ladybug. So anytime I see a ladybug, we think of her, and so does her whole community. Like I get messages all the time. I saw a ladybug and I thought of Holly and whatever you need that to mean. Like for me, it's just, I love these little reminders I have. Forget me nots, ladybugs that connect me to her, and that the earth has provided these reminders. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And she can live on in those moments as you recall her.
Yes. And as other people think about her, and like that is how she lives on for me now, is in this sharing of her story. And that's why I wrote a book about the experience, so that she could live on through that. And as people talk about her, know her and know her story and be inspired by her, she lives through that for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll include a link to the book
in
the comments.
Okay.
Again, it's titled
Love is Everywhere, You Will See.
And you can just get it on Amazon?
Or I have a website as well, love-is-everywhere.com.
Okay.
Get it there too.
What do you want to share about Holly's final days, weeks, months,
Yeah.
and your conversations with her, and if anything?
Well, I could share hours and hours, but to make it brief, it was if we're going to use the word sacred, I think that's as sacred as life, death gets, is that process of being with someone as they died. And I had that same experience with my mom. I was in the room when my mom died, and I felt that same sacredness when my children were born. There is something special when people enter and leave this world. It's a special thing. And I can't explain that like I would have in the past, but regardless, I recognize the beauty of those moments. And even though beauty is kind of feels like the wrong word for this experience, it really did feel like that. She, the cancer was in her head initially here, but it spread to other parts of her body. But what was the hardest is it also went into her mouth. Like we could see the tumor growing on the roof of her mouth, and she had a massive tumor side of her neck. It was like we could see it in her ear. So it was horrific. Which is one of the reasons it became so offensive. If anyone ever tried to put reason to this experience.
Like God wanted it or something like that.
Yeah. Which I was able to say that with my mom. Like it was easier for me to be like, God needed it to happen for whatever reason. Like I kind of used that phrasing, but with a child to die in such a awful way. I mean, she pretty much starved to death because she wasn't able to eat, and we weren't, feeding her through. That was an impossible. I say that and it can sound callous, but you can't understand the process, what it takes to allow that to happen.
Choosing not to use a feeding tube, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And letting it take its course, because it was the only way out for her, the only way to be free of this faulty body. And so, so those days were sacred. I mean, I sat by her side, and my husband, he had to go to work most of the days. And when he was at work, I was by her side. And when he came home, he sat with her and would be with her. He would be with her all night, and then he'd go back and go to work again. It was really beautiful. I don't know that love gets bigger.
Mm-hmm. It comes into like a focus like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we would gather as a family every night, and we would sing Families Are Forever and I'm a Child of God, and these primary songs that were bringing Holly comfort. And we would kneel together in prayer, and they were sacred moments as we waited for this transition for her. And for me at that time, it was the next step in her, because I think in Mormonism, it's all about heaven. It's all about, that is our whole purpose of our existence, is to get to heaven. And so I was there shepherding her into her next, the most important part of her existence. And so I sat with her through that experience, and then cheered her on. I mean, I write in my book about how it was like cheering her on this final part of her race, and just like, you can do this, and we're here, and we love you, and we'll be there so soon, and families are forever, and we love you, and you can go. So a lot of those conversations, and she was just at the age, just as a 10-year-old, she's still at that, like, some kids still believe in Santa at that age. It's still such a believing stage. So she was able to fully, I think, had she been a little bit older, it would have been a lot harder, because she would have had to grapple more with her mortality. But I don't think she spent a lot of time there. She, I think it was scary for her, but she fully trusted us that she was going to be okay. And she was suffering. And so she wanted to be done suffering.
Yes, right.
And that's how she was, we made it clear that's how, and you will not suffer anymore, and you'll be able to move again and eat again. And one time I asked her, what she was thinking about. She's like, I hope there's food in heaven. I'm like, me too. There better be, just being able to just casually talk about, and like, do you think you'll come back and spy on us? And if you do, you should leave us hidden messages. Like, we were very playful about it, and very, just try to be as upfront. Like, we didn't hide it from her. And I think she took comfort in that, knowing what was happening to her body. And, and the hospice care helped me know what was going on, and how to let go of those things, like feeding my child is impossible. So, yeah.
I guess we should say this is where a religion's theology can really come in handy.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense.
Is that right?
Yeah, it makes sense why people have been telling the story for all of time. Like, these moments are impossible. And if there's something that will make it so I can be with my daughter again, like, yes, give me that. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to be with this loved one. Like, so death, yes, we have to create this narrative to help us survive these things that we go through.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to say about her passing, or that you feel like is important to the story?
I think just just how like her funeral was beautiful, like such a beautiful. And by that point, there were so many, like, I really couldn't deal with the doctrines of the gospel, like the celestial kingdom and the three different kingdoms, and then the three kingdoms in the celestial kingdom. Like, all of that felt like that is not important right now. And so I was very careful about how the funeral was going to be. And pretty much the stake president came over to talk to visit in a very ministering kind way. But in that meeting, I was like, here's how it's going to be. And we're not going to have someone stand up that is not part of what we want and talk about the celestial kingdom. Like, this is not the place for that. Because I knew we would have many, many people from outside of the faith. And that felt at that time like this is not the place for those kind of things. And we are going to focus on, like, heaven was still important to me, and an afterlife, and talking about that. But I was very, like, I didn't want someone to get up. You know, a lot of times at funerals, people will get up and make it an opportunity to proselyte. And I wanted to make sure that was not, which I think even in the handbook, that's kind of how it's supposed to be done. But I was very clear about, we're not doing this at this funeral. Mm-hmm. This is how it's going to be. This is who is going to talk. And there was a little bit of pushback, but ultimately they allowed us to run it how we wanted to. And it was beautiful. And there were, the chapel was full all the way back to the stage with people on the stage. There were many, many people that came to support from the community and the church. So I was definitely lifted up and supported during that time in a beautiful way.
Yeah. And again, death is one of the things religions have been helping with for millennia, not just the theology around death, but the actual service. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. To have that, the facility and the friends and church members that made the luncheon afterwards absolutely beautiful. They decorated it for it, and they helped make it as special and beautiful as they could. The church was very helpful for us during all of that.
You mentioned reading A New Earth and Untethered Soul. Those are books that Margie and I discovered after we started to question our faith. Do you want to talk about their role?
Yeah, for sure. So I felt so lifted up by the church and my religion and my faith when Holly died. That was what I relied on to cope, but it wasn't enough. Because losing a child is too big. And so, it was a totally different experience than losing a mom, where that was still enough for me. Like, she's in heaven and it's going to be okay. But a child, it doesn't work for me, it didn't work that way. Like, it did not bring comfort in in those weeks and months and years following her death. It did not bring the comfort that I expected it to bring, because I didn't actually know where she was. I didn't know, was I going to raise her as a child? Was she going to be an adult? Is she afraid right now? Like, all of it it didn't work for me. Like, it had been promised that it would work. It did not bring comfort.
When she was gone.
Yeah. Right. Like, it worked to tell her, to use it as a narrative to help us transition her through death, but it did not sustain me. And then I don't fault anyone for anything they've said, because everybody says things with the desire to help. But God needed her, or she's in a better place, that does not work. Did not work for me, because I needed her, and there was no better place for her than with me. And I didn't want to raise her in heaven. I wanted to have her now. And so that kind of dialogue that had worked in the past was shattered for me, and none of it worked anymore. And I didn't get comfort from God like I had. I wasn't feeling that. It was incredibly painful for a long time. And a friend had mentioned those books, A New Earth and Untethered Soul. And both of those books helped me in a way that nothing else had, in just an acceptance of what is, and a letting go of what you can't control or know. And it brought a peace in a way I was not getting from the church or the church doctrines, just of being able to to accept where I was and to allow, especially and it's been a while since I've read them, but I feel like Untethered Soul, there was a part where I was trying so hard to keep the pain out because it was just more than I could handle. And I think he had talked about like just opening up the, allowing that pain to come in, and with that, the love as well. And that was the experience I had, like where I was trying to, I wanted the church to get rid of the pain. I wanted like that. And that's not what it's supposed to, isn't that the whole point, right? It feels like that's what I had been trained to think, that you can find this peace and comfort. And it wasn't happening until I just allowed myself to grieve and be angry and to feel all of the things. And then in that feeling, I also felt like the gift it was to have her in my life. And I stopped trying to make sense of it and stopped trying to create a narrative. It just is what happens. And now I'm in pain and I miss her, and just accepting that is, that just is. And then allowing myself to feel joy when I felt joy, and to celebrate those moments, and allowing myself to feel pain when I felt pain, and being okay with those moments as well.
Right. Yeah.
Ironically, both of those books are inspired by Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just goes to show that lots of wisdom traditions have, and even religious traditions have lots to offer.
Right.
Because I know when Margie and I lost our Orthodox Mormon faith, Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth was pivotal for helping us reconstruct a spirituality that could be meaningful to us when Mormon spirituality just stopped working.
Right. And I think that's what kind of surprised me in that moment, was like, I felt the spirit when I read that book. I felt like there was something, and for me to read this text that also, like, I felt more from that than I ever had from the Book of Mormon. And so dealing with that, like figuring out, okay, how does that work? If I'm feeling the spirit through this, and if it was a weird, unbalancing, that's not the word, but it just kind of like was like, okay, now what's true and what's not? And also the theology that I would not, under any circumstance, that I wouldn't be able to be with Holly again, became absurd. Like, where Families Forever had been such a pivotal thing for us at that time, it became like, well, obviously I'm going to, regardless of anything, I'm going to be with her. And meeting other parents who had lost their children, who were not in Mormonism, but were like, yeah, I'm going to be with my child again. Like, obviously I'm going to be with Holly again. And so that there are parameters around that in the Mormon faith became very disarming for me. Just like, don't tell me that there's anything that's going to keep me from my child. That's not, there's no way that there is a God that would keep me from my child. So then things are just crumbling around me, because now the celestial kingdom and the different degrees, that doesn't hold its place anymore, because I'm going to be with her again. And so were these other moms. Like, I would never tell a mom who had lost their child that you can't be with your child again unless you're baptized in the Mormon faith. Like, all of that wasn't holding up for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, the pitch for Mormonism is you can be with your family forever. But then when you read the fine print, or you actually serve in the church long enough, it's, you can be with your family forever only if you have the ordinances with the right authority, and everybody is righteous and worthy.
Right.
And so we've covered this recently. The Mormon dream can quickly become a Mormon nightmare if anybody chooses a different faith, or loses their faith, or
it actually
reads the wrong history.
It actually kind of reads differently when you kind of understand it. Then when you start singing the song, it's actually more and more like, likely your family won't be together forever.
Yep.
Like, in all likelihood, if you have, especially a larger family where they're more apt to like leave or be LGBTQ, or then you start actually reading it like, oh, that feels like more of a threat once I read all the things that have to fall in line for us to be together forever.
Yeah. Just the fact that half of all marriages end in divorce. All of a sudden you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah. Right.
Only half the marriages survive, and who's going to be with who in the, we covered this in an episode that's airing today, actually, and on Wednesday. But we're not even mentioning how offensive it is to the rest of the world that 99.9% of God's children won't necessarily have Mormon endowments, Mormon temple weddings, Mormon sealings. And Jesus said, narrows the gate and few there should be that find it. Mormons don't believe that the majority of God's children are going to be in the celestial kingdom. Otherwise, it wouldn't be special.
Right.
So ultimately, this Mormon theology of a celestial kingdom with temple ordinances and temple sealings is really for just the most faithful Mormons, which means most of God's children are in sad heaven,
Right.
Right. Yeah. And you're saying those things started occurring to you.
Oh, of course. I mean, with my own experience, and then even more, I'll talk a little more about how that played in, but also with other people I'm meeting who have lost their child to cancer. Like, obviously, like it felt so absurd that I'd ever even been able to think that way, that there's a chance that they couldn't be. So, all of that, it just didn't hold its place like it had in the past. I couldn't see it that way. And God had a different place as well, where like, what does he control and what does he not control? Like, I don't get it anymore. And I think I would still at that time, he brings everything good in my life. So anything good, I would attribute to God. That was the role that God played in my life, was just any goodness. Because I couldn't make sense of any of it. Plus, yeah.
So that, so I was going to say, like, I know people who just their mom died and they're going to be Mormon, faithful Orthodox Mormon for the rest of their lives, because it was so traumatic to lose their mom, especially, or dad or whatever, at a young age. And, or any parent who loses a kid or a sibling. It's like, I know a certain group of LDS people that are locked Orthodox Mormon forever because that's how they made sense of the trauma and the grief and wanting to see that parent or child or sibling again. So like, for some people, death of a loved one locks them into Orthodox Mormonism all the way through, and they're literally never going to question anything until they die. And I have close people to me where that's their situation, but that's not always what happens.
Right.
And so in your situation, was that what happened, or?
Nope. Yeah. So, Holly died in 2018, and in these years from 2015 to 2018, I had not served in big callings or really been like deep in the gospel because I was busy caring for her and focusing on that love and all that beauty. And then I think just within like 6 months, I got called into the state young women's presidency after not having a calling for a long time. So that was 2000. Yeah. Or maybe it was next year. I don't know. Anyways, soon after. And I was thrown back into all this theology that I had been able to kind of step away from before then. And it was more abrasive to me than it had been. All these things that I had questioned for all the years before that I had just like been able to just ignore and focus on the good. I wasn't able to do it as easily as I had in the past. And I think it's because I had been so laser focused on what mattered in life and what makes life beautiful. And I couldn't tolerate things like I had in the past. So things like, the whole long list that I'd been keeping all those years, I couldn't ignore it. It felt yucky. Like my body just felt off. So like women not having, the final say in anything, which I had struggled with in my other leadership positions. And I'd always been someone to kind of push back a little and be like, when I served as primary president before Holly got diagnosed, at that time, the primary president also put on like the ward Halloween party and the ward, because I think that was when there was not an activities committee. So this woman who already has a massive calling is then asked to like put on every party. And I was like, there's nowhere in the handbook that says that I have to do that. I'm not doing that. And so I'd already, I am someone that questions those kind of authorities, and I'm not just going to do something because you tell me to do it, because I'm already doing as much as I can. And so getting into the stake calling, watching the stake young women's president work so hard to figure out what was best for the youth and how should we manage this, and let's do this. And then, but we'll make sure that our priesthood authority is okay with it. And then the priesthood authority, even though she's a competent woman, we are competent women who can do it. And then they come back and tell us, no, you're not going to do that way. It was so irritating me. I just did not have the tolerance for that anymore. Or that women weren't speaking at general conference, that there was 2 or 3 women out of however many men. It was such dozens of men.
Just a woman or token woman or two.
And that I was like, this is not okay. And so I definitely like entered that phase of, I'm going to be the change. There are things that are wrong with the church, and I'm going to stay in the church and fix it. And so I sent a letter to the first presidency. I don't know where the letter went, but I, addressed it to church headquarters, thinking that my voice would make a difference. And they would be like, oh, women aren't speaking at conference, and we'll change that, because it must be hard for women to not be represented anywhere in anything. And also send it to my stake president and the stake president, the following conference, and I don't know if it's because of that letter, but there were equal men and women speaking. The time was equally divided. And it felt so good to just be like, yes, why can't it just be like that? In stake conference.
Not general conference.
Never.
No, yeah.
And every time at general conference, I'd be like, this time's going to be different. This time they'll have more women speak. Obviously, women need to be heard. And I think it's just because I had opened up to this, like, wait, there is so much inequality. And once I allowed myself to see it, you can't unsee it. And it was just everywhere, just this underrepresentation. And it got harder for me to see the bishop serve the sacrament first. And just all of these things I just couldn't tolerate anymore. Even the way they would, because we were planning big stake activities. And so modesty gets brought up, and what can be worn and what can't be worn. And one of the, they had said no leggings on the high adventure where they're hiking, which is all anyone wears when they're, I do a lot of backpacking, and that's like the most comfortable, easiest thing to wear. And so then I'm like, what and why? Tell me why they can't wear this. And I had a priesthood leader tell me, like, we don't want to see every dimple and crevice and crease. Those were his words that he used to try and say why these girls can't wear leggings, which is wrong on so many levels. That they're even like, if that's what you're focused on, then you shouldn't be around these girls in the first place. And so pushing back against that and getting the standards changed of what the girls could wear, and just being like, you don't have a right to say that about these girls, and you need to change those standards. So it was important for me to say my piece and make the change where I could.
I think you mentioned the November 2015 exclusion policy for LGBT people. Mm-hmm. And I think you also mentioned Heavenly Mother.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Do you want to talk about those?
Yes.
Or we don't have to.
No, for sure. 2015, that was incredibly jarring for me. That was shortly after Holly was diagnosed. And it was definitely one of the biggest shifts where I was like, oh, this is actually not okay. And there's no world where I'm going to pretend like this is okay. They've made a mistake. So it was the first time I allowed myself to think that the brethren, as I'd been raised to see them and call them, could make a mistake. And that's the only way I could make sense of that. And just like I had in the past, I referred to people who were what I felt more faithful to explain it to me. And it was just explained in like, don't get caught up on these things, like focus on the gospel of the doctrine, focus on what actually matters. And sometimes our leaders make mistakes, and they are just men, which it doesn't add up, because then it's that picking and choosing of when it is okay and when it's not. So at that point it also allowed me to tap more into my critical thinking, where I was like, nope, this one's not okay. And I'm not going to justify this one. Like I don't feel okay about that. And I knew gay people at this time, and they're the best and they're wonderful. And we don't need to do things to harm them or make them less than. It just, that part of it also started to play into where I was like, this is not okay. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm okay with this part of the gospel. I will support. And so in my temple recommend interviews from then on, I would always say, you know, when they talk about
sustaining leaders.
Yeah. Sustaining leaders. And do you affiliate with other organizations or support other things? I was like, yeah, I support gay marriage. I'm fine with gay marriage. I think that's okay. And I had the right leaders who passed on that at that time. And so I was gaining power to be able to say how these things that I'd always kind of questioned and I felt more able to say them. And like Heavenly Mother was another one that was important for me to, as I thought about that and felt like this is an important part of the doctrine and I'm not going to shy away from it. And so I gave a Mother's Day talk about Heavenly Mother, knowing that maybe it was a little bit like I was pushing the boundaries, but it felt important for me to talk about this female power that I can't ignore it anymore. It became harder and harder to be a woman in the church for me.
You mentioned a few what are considered to be faithful, almost progressive Mormon podcasts that I'll call out just because I think they're useful to people. So there's Faith Matters, which we've talked about. It's pretty well known, liberal, progressive, faithful Mormon podcast. There's At Last She Said It, which I don't think we've mentioned much. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So both of those were people. This was the first time that I was hearing other people share things like concerns. Because I grew up, I did not talk about concerns for...
Including your own.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I just like ignored those things. And so, so this is when I finally felt like, oh my gosh, other people are saying, like At Last She Said, I love how they said that the name of that podcast was, we're going to start talking about these hard things. We're going to say, this is hard for us. And here's why it's hard for us. And so to have other people also putting words to things I had felt for so many years was empowering too, because I wasn't alone. And then in conversations with friends, we started to talk more. I don't know, there was just more chatter going on about things we questioned instead of always focusing on what we believed in.
And Questions from the Closet is Charlie Bird and Ben Shalati.
Yes, and that one.
Two gay BYU students / staff.
Yes, and hearing their stories and then knowing that they're good people that are just trying to live their lives and listening to that. So all of those things are just expanding my ability to think, allow myself to think more critically and to, I started to feel more safe in deciding what I actually believe. So in that state calling, I only testified of what I believed in, and I believed strongly in love and acceptance. And that's where I was at in those callings. The gospel
gets really simple at that point.
Exactly. And that's what I focused on. Like, this gospel is a gospel of love and acceptance, and you are enough. And that works to an extent, but it cannot, especially in those state callings, it wasn't, you're also expected to testify of Joseph Smith and the temple and all of the other things that come with the gospel. And it was just getting more painful for me to do it. And then COVID, I fully got a break from it. You know, I couldn't do the calling and I couldn't go to church. And I had never felt so much peace. And I didn't miss going to church. I having our home church felt better than anything ever had. And I loved it. And then when things started ramping up again, my husband was called into the bishopric in 2000 later in the year. And just like everything coming back into it, I just was too much friction that I couldn't ignore it anymore. I just had to listen to my body and be respectful of that. And I think a lot of it was because I'd already experienced so much pain and suffering. I wasn't going to suffer anymore for things I didn't have to suffer for. And part of that was living in dissonance all the time. And so I asked to be released from that calling, which was so out of my what I would have normally done. I never ever asked to be released or thought that that was even an option that
it's a taboo in the church
Yes.
to ask to be released from a calling.
And I don't think it's as bad as now. I think people are a little more open to that, but definitely in our day.
Yeah.
Yes. You did not ask to be released. You said yes to every calling and you did not ask to be released. And so I asked to be released, and I continued to I allowed myself just to think about things. And honestly, you brought up D&C 132 earlier. I didn't turn to podcasts like Mormon Stories. I didn't like what was coined anti-Mormon material. I stayed away from all of that. I actually just dove more into the gospel. Like, I need to just, with a critical thinking, I'm going to try this again. And I think we were studying, Come Follow Me was Doctrine and Covenants that year. And I read 132 with different eyes and with that more critical thinking, and it blew everything up. I was like, Joseph Smith is absolutely not a true prophet, and this church isn't, everything was blew up for me.
Because of his polygamy.
Yes, because of the polygamy and the way he talked, the way he used his power to tell Emma that if you don't do what I say, then there's going to be a destroying angel. I think that's the words that he uses.
You'll be destroyed.
You'll be destroyed.
Says, he's saying Jesus is threatening Emma with destruction if she won't let him keep practicing polygamy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which the things that I was able to ignore are now looking back, and it also shows the power of that desire to be part of the community that that was what I was raised with. That's where my family was. It was so important for me to stay, that I was able to look past these things that I just couldn't look past anymore. And so, and my husband as well, we started having these conversations. He's serving in the bishopric and giving temple recommend interviews to people that he's not even sure he believes all of it anymore. Plus, the being alone with a young woman in a room. I mean, now I've got all of my red flags up with that. Now I'm seeing everything clearly, what happened to me, and realizing there's no world where that's okay. It's just not okay.
You're saying D&C 132 brought you back full circle to your experience of being abused by that Elders Quorum President when you're a teenager.
Yes, and also the interviews, the temple recommend interviews, the bishop's interviews, and worthiness interviews. And my husband was doing these with these girls and feeling not okay about it. He would always ask the parents to come in or leave the door open, which
is not standard.
Right. No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. But he was struggling with that as well. And we're both rapidly questioning all of these different things. And so he finally was told the bishop, I can't continue to give these interviews. I'm not going to do that. I'm happy to serve, because he also the tricky thing is that we were also doing so much good in the church. I was speaking at firesides and sharing, spreading so much love, sharing about Holly and the power of that message. I did a number of young women's firesides that were really beautiful. And when my husband would, the bishopric member on Fast and Testimony will start with their testimony. And every time he shared his testimony, it was just about love and the beautiful things of the gospel. And so it was hard for us, because we felt like we were doing God's work. We were doing good in the church and being the change that the church needed. But he couldn't. Neither of us could continue with it. I was teaching young women at that time, and I would look at the manuals and be like, I can teach 2 sentences from this, because I'm losing my belief in all of this. And a lot of it feels harmful at this point. So struggling with that. And when he asked to be released, the stake president wanted to meet with him, because it's not custom for someone to ask to be released. It was so just to kind of see where he was at. And during that interview, asked him, he wanted to go through the temple recommend. It wasn't a temple recommend interview, but he wanted to go through those questions. And he asked the questions, and then he asked another additional and asked him if he believed in temple gay marriage. And my husband was like, sure. Yeah, I think that would be amazing if that was something that could happen.
Wrong answer.
Yep. It was the wrong answer. And he got his temple recommend taken because of answering that way, which then that did it for us, because everything that we had built our life around. I mean, it's all built around the temple, right? Like you go to the temple so you can go to the celestial kingdom, so you can be with your family forever. We were married in the temple. Everything was built around our worthiness to be at that temple. And now this man, he is one of the best men I know. He is a kind, caring, Christ-like person that they don't get much better than him. And if he is not worthy to go into the temple, then we don't belong in this church anymore.
Well, I mean, part of what's so shocking about that, the implications of that is he's basically just saying, do you love LGBT people so much you want them to have eternal families too? That's kind of how you would decode that question. So if your husband says, yeah, I want them to have the same eternal family that I get, as soon as they take your temple recommends away, what they're literally saying is you won't be with Holly
exactly
in the afterlife.
Right. Exactly.
Am I wrong?
No, that's exactly. And that's when like that became so, I mean, I'd already said it was already like an absurd thought that we couldn't be with her. But now what they've just done really keeps us from our daughter in Mormon heaven. It really does. Like he now cannot be with her anymore because he supports gay people choosing who they want to marry.
Having eternal families.
Yes. And I guess because it was phrased as temple gay marriage, that was the problem with it, because, which is confusing to me, because if there was temple gay marriage, then the prophet would have decided that's what was going to be, right? And then everyone would have to support it. So that's complicated anyway, because
But most gay Mormon men don't want to be with a woman in the afterlife forever.
Right.
They don't.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, just that his support for people choosing who they want to love is enough to keep us from our child in heaven.
That's what it means.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was it for us, kind of, because this was in the spring, and we had a child on a mission. We had another one at BYU, and then another one who our third child had just gotten accepted to go to BYU in the fall. And so there was a lot of conflict for us to know how to navigate all of that.
And we've done entire episodes on losing your faith while your kids are on a mission, losing your faith while you're at BYU.
Right.
Like that's
right.
Those things deserve their own episodes.
Agreed. And so we had to navigate how to handle all of that, because we're not just making this choice for ourselves, but it's affecting our children as well. And our son, who is, his whole life is teaching people about this church that I told him to do, like I'm the one that got him to that point. And now to turn our backs on it while he's serving a mission, while our kids are at BYU where they're expected to attend church, we did not make that decision lightly. And I think that is I think that's what people don't understand. A lot of people in the church don't understand a lot how seriously people take leaving the church. Like, it took the amount of prayer and study and thought I gave into it was massive. And I was very aware of how it might affect my children, and had lots of conversations with them about it, and made sure that they were part of it. And what do you want to do? And even our daughter, who was about to go to BYU, just like, if you don't want to go, we can find a different, that was the only school maybe she was accepted to others, but that was where she was planning on going. That's where both my husband and I went. That's where her siblings were. It's what we knew, and what she had been planning on. So then this wrestle of, does she go there? Does she not? And in the end decided to go there. So we stayed in the church until she left to go to BYU, and then stopped attending after that. And our stake president reached out to us when we stopped attending, let us know that he heard that we weren't coming anymore, and wanted us to know that there was we might be hurting future generations with this decision to leave, which felt very
threatening.
Also threatening. Yes.
Threatening, maybe?
To take not only like and then the bishop made sure to send us an email and let us know you are making the wrong choice. And if you would just pray more, if you would just read the Book of Mormon. I mean, it was just wild to me, what they felt like they could get away with saying. And also I did the same when I was in those leadership callings. I think that's the problem. These are good men who believe that it's the most important thing and will go to all lengths to make sure people believe the way they're supposed to. And
would these be the same leaders that over the ward where you had lost Holly?
No. Oh, yes. So
I mean, like, and again, my mind is just blown that like they would have lived through all of that with you. The church is making promo videos for world headquarters about your story. You're giving firesides everywhere. I mean, obviously y'all had given everything to the church, and the church was happy to have you be their ambassador forever. But then because of changing beliefs that weren't unconnected to the passing of your daughter, by the way, they couldn't just go, oh, you know what? Their situation's complicated. Let's just love them and let them have whatever experience they're going to have. And when they come, we'll celebrate them. And when they don't come, we'll give them all the love and support that we can.
Right.
They couldn't, and not to fault the men, the culture and the system. They just couldn't let you just have your experience. They had to punish you. Yeah.
They had to let us know that what we were doing was wrong. And then we've had people tell us that like, you like straight out said, you won't, like, what about Holly? You're going to give this up and then give up your daughter as well. And so, I mean, that is what the church teaches. And as much as some people can be like, oh, that's not really how it's going to be. And that, like, you're going to be with whoever. And if you want that, it's going to all work out. But that's not the theology of the church. Like, you have to do these things. You have to be worthy to be in the highest degrees. And she's not going to be kept from that because she was perfect. You know, she was a child. And so we know that's where she's going to be. And so, so that's what it teaches, that we've given up that opportunity to be with her in heaven. And of course, that's scary and painful for people to hear that or to think that could happen. Yeah.
Did you say that they reached out to your son's mission president?
Yes, that was the other thing. My stake president reached out to my son's mission president, and it felt very, like we had talked to our son on our own. Like it's not like we were keeping anything from him, but we let him know. But they told him, they gave him, how to, like, we're so sorry your parents have left, and here are some things that you can do, and you are good even though they've left. So all of the language is like,
that is very familiar to us as well.
Yeah, all that language is your parents are in the wrong, but this is why you need to stay. It's even more important for you to stay active.
That's
and so
right.
So I just didn't love the gossipy aspect of the stake president telling on us, which I know they don't see it that way, but in reality, that's what it is. It's him reaching out and being like, just so you know, the parents are not correct anymore. And I think I don't know if it's for safety for that child coming back into a home. Like, if he hadn't known, I guess that would be a really hard transition to come back if we weren't active anymore. And he didn't know that, but then that's not trusting that the parents are having those conversations, which we were talking to him about it. So it just was unnerving to me that they were, and then I had children at BYU at this time too. And so I reached out and I was like, please don't ever do that again to any of my children's leaders. Don't reach out to them and tell them what I'm doing. They're independent people. They can make their choices, and I can have a relationship with them independent of you telling people how they should feel about us or making my children feel like we were a problem. And when my son came home, we went to his homecoming, and that was the first time we'd been back to church I think it was just about 4 months later. And it happened to be testimony meeting, and it was the only day he could do it because he was heading off to college like the next week. And And one of the testimonies was just all about how sad it was that his family hadn't been active, but he prayed. And this is someone else sharing their testimony. And then the family all came back. And it just hurt me that my son was sitting listening to this, and this person's talking about how awful and sad it is that family members leave the church. And so he's getting that messaging that that we are a problem, and obviously don't like that. And we've talked to him plenty that I think it's okay, but it's still, that's the messaging he's getting, is that we are incorrect, which is sad.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that wants to just give grace that it's system and not people, and that the church does a lot of good, and people mean well, and that, not everyone has the experience you did. And on the other hand, like I want to flip a table when I add up the abuse you experienced as a teenager, abused by an Elders Quorum President, abused by your bishop in the sense that you were blamed as a victim for the abuse. Then you give your whole life to the church. Your kid dies in church. The church is marketing your kid's death in a way. But then also all the decades y'all served and all your callings and helping the church and firesides. It feels incredibly ungrateful, but also psychologically abusive for them just all to just flip and turn on you because you have doubts or questions or even disbelief that all come from very reasonable places. It feels abusive and almost psychologically violent to hear how this turns up, given all you've experienced and given to the church.
Yeah, and I just think it shows how important it is. Like when you are fully in the church, like it's the only thing that matters. Like it matters above all else. It matters that people stay in the church for their, and I think that, it comes back to that, like members of the church are so desperate for this perfect afterlife. I think they live their whole life for this afterlife. And so they miss a lot of the living because they're so focused on, and so there's not room for that grace and that nuance because they're so panicked. Like you can't give this up, and you can't, you're risking your children's belief in Jesus Christ. And if they don't believe in Jesus Christ, I mean, that's how it was worded to us. Like if they lose their faith in Jesus Christ, that's the only way to get to heaven is through that belief. And so you're putting that at risk for not only yourself, but your children, and the way it was written for future generations. So they're putting the weight of hundreds of people on this choice that I have been incredibly intentional about making, and know it's what I have. For me to say stay sane and find peace, it became the only option, was stepping away from the church.
Yeah. And it's mind-boggling because we now know in 2025 that something like half of Mormon return missionaries are leaving the church within 6 months of coming home. I mean, the church doesn't release those numbers, but there have been many reports that it's a large percentage of return missionaries are coming home immediately and leaving the church. Just think of all the fractured families. Your story is just happening. And then there's a ripple effect when a stalwart return missionary leaves the church. Their siblings start asking questions, their parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins. Yeah. So it's just like this toxic ping pong of sad Mormon heaven that's rippling all throughout Mormon wards and families. My
brother was one of those missionaries. When he's my younger brother, he would have gotten home from his mission in 2000, probably 99. So a long time ago, where it wasn't happening as much. And he left the church shortly after. And I felt that same, like I grieved his leaving the church and how sad that was. And now I am like, sorry, dude. Like I'm sorry I wasn't more accepting, and that I made something out of it that I wish I could have accepted you. It breaks my heart that I couldn't accept him for who he was then, that it took me so many years to and now, and a lot of it is because now I feel that, there are a lot of people that struggle with what I've chosen to do. And so now I feel what I did to my brother and to other people too, in that desperate attempt to have this perfect world that the Mormon church tries to create. Yeah.
Yeah, the Mormon family dream becomes a nightmare for so many.
For most, it feels like. And the few that it works for, it works beautifully. And I'm happy for them. Like if it works, that's amazing.
Right.
And it just didn't hold up for me. And some people it does hold up for. And I feel they're so lucky that they get that. And I get why they stay in the church, because it's a beautiful, good, amazing thing that guarantees they're going to be with their families forever. Why wouldn't they want that?
Yeah, but because so many people leave or get divorced or sin or whatever, the way people make sense of it is to say, well, God will figure it out in the afterlife. It'll all be okay because God is just. And if that's the case, you don't need the doctrine to begin with.
Right.
Because if God's going to make it, why didn't he just not have the doctrine, let everyone enjoy their lives?
Yeah.
And then he just figures it out and makes it all good in the afterlife without everybody having pain and suffering.
Yeah. Yep.
So the only way you can make it okay and make sense is to neuter it of all its teeth, basically.
Yes.
Right? Water it down.
Right. Which is not how I don't navigate the world that way. Like I'm not able to just be okay. Like, oh, all this, none of that actually matters, because I'm hearing otherwise, right? From the leaders who are supposed to be the like my mind just can't holds room for all of that all those things. And some people can, and then the church works for them because they can dismiss those things that don't work for them and just hold on to what matters. And it worked for me for a while, but it was not sustainable for me.
Yeah. So, really quickly, what have your beliefs become now about Holly and the afterlife? Yeah.
So I think that has been the most interesting thing to experience for me, because with the church, when the stake president sent that email to us after we left and was like, well, I hope you at least still believe in Jesus. That was kind of what he said. Like, and I was like, of course I'm still going to believe in Jesus, and I believe in heaven and God and all of that. But as I allowed myself to more critically think, I was shocked at how quickly everything dismantled. And I was left with like nothing and everything in the most shockingly beautiful way. Like, I can't believe my whole life I had been told that if you leave the Mormon church, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to feel peace. You can't be with your family forever. All these threats really of not being part of the faith. And I didn't experience that. And when I let go of, like, I got to decide what I wanted God to be. I got to decide what Jesus's role in the world was. I got to figure that out for myself. And it has been an amazing process of being able to decide for myself what I believe, what God looks like. And the Mormon God did not work for me at all. And so that God was gone pretty quick. And with that comes my belief in Jesus and then a belief in heaven, until it got stripped down to just where, honestly, I just don't know anymore. And it's not painful to not know. And that's what's been most surprising to me, is that I actually feel like this expansiveness and this beauty in that not knowing, and not trying to put a name to things that nobody actually knows. And the fact that we try and like put it in a box or create this God this certain way is where so much pain comes from. So if you just allow things just to be as they are, the world's actually quite beautiful. And so will I see Holly again? I don't know. But I know that I got her for the 10 years that I had her. And I know that was beautiful. And I know I have these other 4 children that I'm with right now. And I get to love on them and care about them and love them how they are. And I don't have to expect them to be a certain way. And I know that I get to share this time with my husband, who I love deeply. And I do not take that for granted. I celebrate the living in a way I never did before, because it was all about what came next.
Right.
And so just the peace I feel, because the struggle I felt with like trying to put Holly in heaven and where is she and how does it work, felt like it didn't feel good. It didn't align. But now the peace I feel, which is like, I don't know, but I know that people heard her sing today, and she was alive through that moment, and that I can share her story and she's alive through that. And that's what I can do. And that's what I know now. And it doesn't matter what comes next, because what I know is happening right now is I'm going to love my people more fiercely than I ever did, because they're here right now and I get to be with them. And what a gift it is to have that.
They say that one side effect of death, one valuable aspect of death, of the death of a loved one, is it just makes you a lot more attentive to the living you've got left with the loved ones that are remaining. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just the gift it is to be, and now, before I had even at Holly's funeral, I talked about the plan of happiness, and then we lived with God, and then we came here and we're learning, and then we go be with God again, that whole process. But now that narrative doesn't hold for me, it just feels amazing that we're here on this absolutely stunning, beautiful world with people that we can love, and people we can interact with, and experiences we can have. And I am not a stranger to pain. And so I'm not afraid of pain. And so some things cause pain and some things cause happiness, and it's just all information. And I feel in control. That's the other thing. I feel in control of how I'm going to navigate this world. But where before I had to do it all under the pretense of Mormonism, I had to do it based on what my leaders were telling me. And even with callings, I was always at the mercy of whatever calling I got next. And now I get to be so intentional about how I spend my time and who I interact with. Everything has more, and it's not like life is great now. It's still painful and hard and all the things.
I mean,
but
it's not perfect.
It's not perfect. Right. Yeah. It doesn't, I had a beautiful life in the Mormon church, and I'm also having a beautiful life outside, which I didn't know was possible. Right. I had been led to believe that wasn't going to be an option.
Yeah.
And so to now experience it, and that's another reason I want to come share my story, is just because it's been helpful to, once I did leave the church and listen to Mormon stories and listen to other people share how they found they were happy outside the church. I was like, what? You actually can be? And it just made me feel less alone, and helped me see there is good life. It can be good and beautiful outside of the church, for sure.
Yeah. So you kind of already answered this, but a lot of my Christian viewers and listeners, and even some faithful Mormons, are like, why do you have to give up Jesus? I'm so frustrated, John, as if we screen for this. We don't. We just take people not based on the outcome, just on the coolness of their story. But so many are like, why do they have to abandon Jesus? Why do so many of your interviewees have to abandon Jesus? Keep God and Jesus. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Do you have a response for that?
Yeah, I just, I was surprised, because I had other people say that when they left the church, that they didn't believe in Jesus anymore. And that scared me. Even after I left the church for those first few months, that scared me, to think that I would lose my testimony in Jesus as well. But it just didn't hold up for me. It just wasn't, it didn't make sense anymore. What made sense is that this person came and lived on the earth and taught a lot of good. And then, just like with every other thing, some other men took that and monopolized on it, and they were able to make from that what they wanted to then control other people and to decide how other people should live their life. And so I also looked at Christianity with a different perspective, and read books about how the Christian church was founded, and how the Bible was written much later after Christ. So it's just men creating the stories. And I just didn't want to be, and I also didn't want to go through a man to get to God anymore. All of that just felt like it didn't feel right to me anymore. So, and I felt free to let that go and know that I was going to be I wasn't going to go to hell because of it. I felt, I think I felt enough. I didn't feel fearful anymore, which is a lot of what a belief in Jesus is just this like fear of the afterlife, and Jesus is the only way to get there. And I just didn't feel that fear anymore.
Or like fear of your sins, but
Right,
Jesus
right.
makes the sins better.
Yes. I also did not see like Satan and sin. I mean, all of it fell away, where it's just life is just experiences, and some experiences are good, and then you can further those, and some are bad, and don't do those again. Like it just, instead of evil and good, it was just experiences that we have in this life.
What about the types of things Mormons think are sinful?
Mm-hmm.
Some want to say people leave the church because they want to sin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, has that been your experience?
No, well, obviously that's not why I left the church. But I have been more open to the things that were seen as sinful and have approached them differently. Like with drinking alcohol, like I've tried alcohol and also been like, I don't think it's for me, but it was my choice. Like all of these things become my choice. And I also think those things we know those things can be damaging in people's life. It's not like like if they're used inappropriately, then they're not going to be good for people. But now I approach it all with a different view, not like good and bad, but being smart about how you, and even with marriage, like it's helped my husband and I really just be like, do we really want this? Is this really like, and we've been able to have those conversations in the ways that you can't in the church, because in the church, you just stay with your partner. And, but now we can be like, hey, do you really want this? I want this, in a safer, like it makes it so we are intentionally together because we are choosing that instead of trying to like live up to some agreement that we made that we can't get out of
years and years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Margie and I relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
What about friends and family? It was your ward.
Yeah. So none of my closest friends were in my ward at that time. And the ones that I was pretty kind of close to, I tried to stay in, contact with them, but it definitely was harder. Like you have this whole community that has to be in your life, and it just happens because you're seeing each other twice a week, at activities and at church, and that I lost all of that. Like that was all. I didn't have that community anymore, and they would. That one's so tricky because it's not like they would show up, they'd bring a Christmas gift or something. They definitely showed up, but it is hard when you've left to know what the intention is. And I don't think that's fair on either end, because I've been on the other side of that, right? Where I was doing things because I was called to do it as a ministering sister or whatever, but I also wanted to do those things. So I think it just makes the relationships a little harder to know, like, what are you trying to get from this relationship? And then it's my parents had both died. My dad had died before I left the church. I'm sure that would have played a big factor into it. And then I've had siblings leave the church as well. But the ones that are still active, it's very, very hard. And close friends, that there were some hard months that we had to really. I had to decide, like, I had to just keep showing up and just being like, I'm still here. I'm still part of your life. And this is who I am now. And so I had to see, like, can you handle that or not? And for the most part, the relationships that have meant the most to me, though they went through some difficult things, I think we've arrived at a good place of understanding and respect. I still totally respect their activity in the church. And I hope that respect is given back. And we just don't talk about it much.
And with your own kids, you raised your kids to be faithful. Has that been complicated? Yeah,
it's so complicated. I mean, I feel bad. I feel bad that I was a good Mormon mom. I taught my kids, and I expected them to follow the covenant path. That was my plan for them. And so then to backtrack on that, it felt unfair to do to them. And so we have had lots of conversations about that and how, and also respect for those that choose to stay in the church. I have full respect for that. Like, of course, like, do what you need to do. I would never try and talk them, or my siblings or friends that are active, talk them out of into leaving the church. I actually did a lot more of that when I was in the church. I felt more like free to say, what about this and this? And now I just don't approach that. I just like, if they have questions for me, I'm happy to answer where I stand, but I let them live their life. And I also feel like my relationship with my children is so much better because I'm not expecting them to do the covenant path. I think that caused so much strain on my relationships because I expected them to be a certain way and it was scary if they weren't. And so now I just get to love them how they are.
Is it fair to assume at least some have decided not to stay with the church?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My oldest daughter, for sure. She graduated from BYU a year ago. And then the others, well, and then my son, who I have a 15-year-old who he was 12 when he left, 13. And we definitely, I know that's complicated because obviously he's not going to go to church if mom and dad aren't going, but we gave him the option and I would have kept going if he wanted to, but it's not what he wanted at that time. But I told him that like, you can get baptized again. Like you can choose what to do with this going forward. But he was really happy to be done. He was at an age where he was happy to not go to church anymore. So yeah.
I am curious, what brings you joy right now?
Yeah, so many things. And I think because I have been prescribed joy for so much of my life, like this is how you find joy. And also I've experienced so much suffering that the things that bring me joy feel extra special right now. Like I just got to go when Holly was diagnosed, I was turning 40. She got diagnosed on my 40th birthday. And I had a party planned with, like, I was going somewhere and people were flying in for this party and obviously had to get canceled. And such a hard thing. But I just turned 50 in September and I tried again to plan something and actually went to Europe with, for a couple of weeks. My husband came for part of it. My best friends came for part. My sisters came for part of it. And it was just this beautiful, like full circle moment of me, like taking ownership of my life and being intentional about, finding joy and doing what makes me happy. And to just the fact that I get to experience this life with people I really care about and creating meaningful relationships that feel more special than they ever did. Because a lot of relationships in the church were because I was in the church, but now every relationship I have is because I want that relationship and I want that experience. And also finding ways to still give back to the community. I think there's value in service. Like the church taught me to serve and to give. And so I still find ways. We are very involved. Like we've created our community outside of the church. And part of that is this childhood cancer community where we've made dear, dear friends and have volunteered at different things to help other families who are going through the same thing. And just trying to still give to the world and make the world a beautiful place. And also just to enjoy being on it. I just am I'm so much better at listening to myself and what do I want to do, what makes me happy and feeling okay pursuing that. Where in the church, that was not how I navigated the church.
Self.
Yes.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's such a beautiful, fun, like I just love my body and what it's capable of and the decisions I can make. And it just feels like such a precious opportunity to experience life. Yeah. And nature, I love to be in nature. And I spend a lot of time. I feel like that's where I get my spirituality now, is just like seeing what the beauty of Mother Earth and the complexity and not trying to, the life and death that is in nature, that is also in my own life, and just how it's just this beautiful cycle that I can just, appreciate it for what it is, instead of trying to make it something that never, instead of putting it in a box, it feels so expansive and so much bigger than me in the most beautiful, breathtaking way.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. My last question, I think, is around What you do, I think your nature kind of and movement maybe might be in here, but like, what do you do to cope when you're suffering?
Yeah, I turn to writing a lot. I think that's another reason I wrote my book. And I actually worked through a lot of my leaving the church through writing. Like I processed so much of that through things that I would write out. Like that's where I would turn to. That's always been a resource that I've used to work through things. And then also, yes, I love to exercise. I love to take good care of my body. And then also I surround myself with really amazing people. I'm lucky to have a very supportive husband, children I love, and then some dear, dear friends, a lot of them who have experienced the same thing I have. Whether it's my friends in the childhood cancer community who've also lost children, or my friends who have left the church, and also my friends who are still in the church and accept me for who I am. And it feels even more beautiful that they still love me, even though I think differently than they do. So just surrounding myself with people that bring me joy. And yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been so powerful, so beautiful.
Yeah.
We're so grateful. And literally almost every narrative we receive probably 1,000 applications a year for people filling out the forms and submitting a video to be on Mormon Stories. I would say the majority have abuse stories, and we always have to just decide how many abuse stories are we going to tell, because we also we want to be mindful of the capacity and mental well-being of our audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I never want to put on a victim having to, the burden of having to worry and care for the people who are in the audience. But I'm just mindful of how just poised and gracious you are in telling the story of really horrible abuse. And then also the same with the passing of your daughter. But I just feel so much light and so much uplift from what you shared with us today. So I'm so grateful.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share these things, because I think, obviously in the church I shared often how I felt about things, and I still, like, even more, I want to be able to share this joy that I feel and this happiness outside of the church as well, that there is still so much to be joyful about, and that it is also beautiful on this side as well.
Yeah, I love that.
And before we let you go, Margie and I had this idea, it was really Margie's, of always ending all future episodes with 3 final questions. So you already know what the questions are, but I'll ask them now. What is a book, podcast, or TV show that you have enjoyed lately? And I think you answered one of each for that one.
I did. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to.
That's good. Yeah. So book.
Okay. I love to read, and I have too many. So I'm just sharing the one that I most recently read that I enjoyed. It's called This Is How It Always Is.
I love that
You've
book.
read that book. Okay. Okay. It's a beautiful narrative. And I think it touched me so much. So it's about a family who has a transgender child, and then that experience. What do we, as parents, how do we navigate this? And I related to so much because with Holly, like, we had also had impossibly hard things that we had to navigate. And so, anyways, it's a beautiful story about parenting, and how difficult parenting and how beautiful parenting can be, even when things aren't traditional and might be a little bit difficult. So it's a beautiful book. And then podcast 10% Happier by Dan Harris. I don't know if you guys listen to that one.
I do.
Excellent podcast. Yeah.
He focuses on mindfulness.
Yes. Yep. Everything rings true to me that and that's the beauty now, is that I can just take or leave things. Yes.
That's right.
And a lot of what he says resonates with me.
Yeah.
And then what was the other thing?
TV.
Dancing with the Stars right now.
Are you on Team Whitney?
I am. This is actually the first time, because in the past I was very intentional about what I would spend my time watching. And so that wouldn't have fit into but it's so fun and I love it. And it's been just so fun. There's this whole world of entertainment that has opened up to me since leaving the church that I get to just enjoy and not have to be
just fun.
Yeah, just
as
fun.
Opposed to like the serious.
Yes. And I think in the past I would have looked at it and judged it for how they were dancing or what they were wearing and such. I mean, it's just so sad the way I viewed the world before, and then also so fun how I can see it now and just how fun it is to watch and
absolutely
enjoy those things. So today, that's what I'm enjoying the most.
All right. The second question is, who is someone you admire?
Oh, my sweet girl, Holly. Yeah, she'll forever be my hero. I told her one day that like what a gift it was to be able to spend every day with my hero. She taught you a couple things. She taught me to look for love, and she taught me how to navigate life even when life is incredibly difficult. That even in pain, you can still find joy, and that has proven true to me my life over and over again. And that she is like she gives me a desire to make the most of my life.
Beautiful. Yeah. All right. Last question is, what's something that has been lighting you up lately?
Just all those things I already said. Yeah. Just the people I love and being in nature and traveling and seeing this amazing, beautiful world. And just seeing I recognize the hard in this world, obviously. And I also recognize and celebrate the good.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. Well, Heidi Bruno, this has been such a pleasure. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I guess also thank Holly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
For sharing your Mormon stories.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Margie, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I just want to say, holding you and your story, Holly, and love is everywhere.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Love is everywhere. Really quickly, thanks to Brooklyn for her help with this episode, and Julia. They do great work behind the scenes along with our board. Just have to throw out a thanks to our donors because we couldn't do any of this, including pay for Heidi's travel expenses and lodging and all that without your support. So if you're a donor, thank you. You make all this possible. You help make all this possible. And if you're not a donor, but you value this type of content and want to see it continue, all you have to do is go to mormonstories.org/donate or mormonstories.org and click on the donate button, sign up to become a monthly donor. And that makes this possible. I got a request recently to do less young people. I got some feedback that we're doing too many 20 or 30 somethings. We need to do more 40 plus, 40, 50, 60, 70 somethings or 80 somethings. Well, we can only do that if people apply. The way that we learned about Heidi is she freaking applied, and she made her little 3-minute video, and we loved it. And we said this would be a great story. And that's the way you can be on Mormon Stories. We can't accept every application. What we're looking for are just good stories by good storytellers that have a good sense for why our audience would really connect with their story. Sometimes it's knowing what stories have already been told and who's already been on, but also just knowing who our audience is and what they think and care about. So if you have a story, if you feel like you can tell a meaningful story and you have a good story to tell, just apply. You can go to mormonstories.org/apply, or you can go to mormonstories.org, scroll down to find the apply button, fill out the form, record a quick 3-minute video. The video is the most important part. We will not consider your application under almost all circumstances unless you record the video. So please record the video, upload it, send us a link, and we'll review it and let you know if we feel like it's a good fit. We also love your emails at mormonstories@gmail.com, your ideas. Please send them in. And then finally, we love comments. Please subscribe and like to this channel and all the channels. Please share these episodes with others, and commenting always helps. Is interesting, is fun, and helps with engagement. So please do all that as well. Thanks again, Margie. And thanks again, Heidi.
Of course.
And again, thanks to everyone. Thanks to Mindy Gledhill as well for her cute, awesome art and her work and service and everybody else. Be good to each other, be kind to each other, be a peacemaker, be a bridge builder. And we'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. Take care.